Nobody to somebody. All right, all right. Nobody 2 is finally out. I think 4 years after the release of the first Nobody movie starring Bob Odenkirk. And the first one was a huge surprise. I didn't really watch John Wick before, and I ended up watching John Wick and then Nobody right after that. And Nobody was fucking amazing. I mean, I think I just love these John Wick style type of action movies, and the first one just so brilliant. So the second one being directed by a guy who's worked on 2 VHS horror movies and ABCs of Death, if I'm remembering correctly, doesn't really get you too excited, especially after how good the first one was. But this one is so much fun. I think a lot of people are hating this movie because of how huge of a tone change it is, but I think it really really works. This whole complete 180 vibe flip of the first one kind of being serious throughout the entire movie and this one being almost almost entirely campy just works so well. Every funny bit in this movie just lands. The grandpa is hilarious throughout this movie. Bob Odenkirk, while still being a bit more serious, especially during his fighting scenes, he does take a bit of a turn and it's so fucking funny. Um, the villain also being like a pretty goofy character. I think I mean she was Russian, but she was listening to some German pop music and she was dancing to it right before her main entrance towards the final act, and it just works so well. I didn't think they were gonna do this much of a tonal flip, but the set being a an amusement park, it just it just fits. And I see a lot of people don't agree with that, but I think this movie's just way too fun, and I think it's a good change. Something with John Wick, as the movies progress, they get more and more goofy, especially with how the action is. They don't get this goofy, but I think this works. For a movie I didn't think we'd get a sequel, I think it's fine getting a sequel that is a bit more goofy. It's the same thing I have with Wonder Woman, except I think Wonder Woman 2 is much worse than this movie. I do enjoy the fact that it is a bit more fun, um, especially with the action scenes, and I'm gonna get into that right now. The first one being the elevator scene with the fun jazz music playing in the background is a blast. Obviously we don't start Goofy right away in this movie, and we also do get Bob Odenkirk's adventures throughout the months. With a few action scenes here and there, but we don't get that much. And as the movie progresses, the music gets sillier and the action is way more creative than the first one as well. You get the arcade scene where the dude smacks his daughter in the back of the head and he kind of just loses it and walks back to the arcade and uses the arcade like one of those damage rooms that you go into and you start smashing things everywhere. He takes the guy's head and puts it on the whack-a-mole and is beating his head with the hammer of the whack-a-mole machine at the same time as he's beating the guy. It's so funny. And he slams a guy's face into a pinball machine, and you kind of get the camera angle where it's inside the pinball machine and his head is smashed into it, and you can see the score going up and everything. I thought that was so sick. I wish the movie did a few more scenes before the final act like that, but I don't know, it's just so fun. Is also the funny music that plays. It's a bit more like it's like carny music rather than rock and roll, which you get later in this movie, or even jazz, which you get before the movie. I wish the movie also did that a bit more. I think the carny, fun, pop music works pretty well with the vibe and setting of this movie, but it's fine. You get the scene later on, which is unfortunately not as goofy as the arcade scene, but where he goes to the warehouse to go meet up with the evil group and apologize to them and leave, but he sees the kid and he mirrors the thing his wife does earlier in the movie where he drives off and then reverses back to but he actually does something and he goes inside, and you get this cool transition where the camera you get a bunch of these bullets coming out of the building, and the camera's panning over, and it passes a barrel, and it goes inside the warehouse, and you get a very short but very sweet action scene inside the warehouse, and I like that it ends very similar to how the first movie ends, where he just lights the money on fire, and you can see it in his face, he regrets it, but what else can he do about it? Um, I'm just gonna get to the final act because I can't stop thinking about it. I think the few action scenes before it are phenomenal, just like Nobody One, but I think Nobody Two's final act is much, much better than a lot of the stuff in Nobody One. I don't think people are gonna agree with me, but I think the way they set up the use of the amusement park is hilarious, and I don't think I've seen something like this before where they're using an amusement park to this degree. Putting landmines in a ball pit is hysterical. I was laughing throughout the entire setup scene of this movie. You have his dad setting up a machine gun on top of the tower. They're cutting the wiring to the Ferris wheel. They're setting stuff up in the fun house. It's just so brilliant. And to see it executed as well is also hilarious. The agents chasing him into the ball pit and their body parts exploding all over the screen. You get the few uh wire traps where the people trip over it and then surfboards are hitting their face full of knives, and Bob Odenkirk going down the water slide, and there's a little trigger that just sets up so spikes go up as the guy's going down the water slide. It's all hilarious, and I like that it's very Home Alone-y, and it just doesn't it's just so much fun. You get the amazing maze, mirror maze scene, which I wish they did a bit more with, but it works really well. And I just wish they did more in the funhouse because that's where the mirror maze was. I think a funhouse just has so much to work with. We've seen it in horror movies before, where there's the spinning bit and other parts in the funhouse, and I wish they did a little bit more with it. But the mirror maze is just so good. It kind of makes up for it. I'm trying to think of something else that was so funny in this final scene. I'm trying to get to. Oh yeah, the Ferris wheel. I was talking about it earlier. They cut the wires to the Ferris wheel, and the Ferris wheel goes full circle and smashes the three guys in the face, and then even comes back and does a second hit on one of the other guys. I thought that was genius. I don't know how we haven't gotten something like this before. I think the use of the setting of the amusement park was just brilliant, and I'm happy that they just kept going along with the funny, goofy, campy vibe of this movie. People don't like it, but I don't know. Nobody's so good. I expect the third one to go back to something similar to the first one, but we'll see. I think the second one's just too much fun, and I'm really upset that people don't like this movie. I will say, the one thing I really didn't like was the change of character for uh his wife Becca. I'm trying to remember who she's played by, but she in the first movie the whole thing was like she's kind of turned off by the fact that Bob Odenkirk is not too cool anymore, and he kind of stopped being like that Secret Service agent type character, or bounty hunter type character. And I feel like the whole movie was them building the relationship back up together, and it kind of sucks that the second one is them rebuilding the relationship again. I think that was a bit too much. The movie would have been way better without it, especially with how goofy it was. I think it would have been way funnier if his wife was just like full blown, she's joining in on the final act. Instead, you just get the one shot with the dart rifle, and that's it. Oh, I forgot to mention, RZA in the few scenes he's in this movie is awesome. You have the scene where he's meditating and he pops up on screen. I love that. And the sword, the little sword fighting ninja stuff he does in the forest is great. The pull, there's a guy who gets pulled to the ground and drug across the whole forest and just screaming, and the other guy's looking around. And RZA does this fucking sick samurai uh ninja shit in the final bit of his fight, and he slices the dude's head in half. It's just so cool. Um, Man, I really love this movie. I don't get why people don't like this. It's so much fun. I forget where I was going with this. Oh yeah, Becca's character. I just wish Becca did more throughout the movie. It kind of sucks that they sideline her as being a wife that hates him again. I don't know. Maybe in the third movie she joins him. but we'll see. The whole point of this movie is to show that he is a family man, but he just doesn't spend enough time with his family. I'm not really sure where to put Nobody 2. I think it's so much more fun and has a bit more creative action scenes than the first one. But the first one is slightly better than this movie. But I do think if you want a summer flick, I think this is the summer flick of the year. Um, Obviously, we had bigger movies like Superman, Fantastic Four, Weapons, and F1. But I think as a summer movie, I think this was the perfect summer movie, and such a shame we got it in the end of August because end of August isn't summer anymore. You know, kids start school now and everything. But I think this was the summer film. Is it better than Nobody One? I don't think so. Is it way more fun? Definitely. Uh, I don't know if we're gonna get the same director for the third one, but I mean, like I said earlier, we'll see how the third one pans out. It might not even be goofy anymore. It might just take Nobody One, but we might get a whole family adventure. I really don't know. This movie is fun. If you haven't checked it out for some reason and you're watching this review, you should check it out. This is up there with Ballerina for me. I think I had more fun with this movie than Ballerina. I think their action is just as equal, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe I have to rewatch Ballerina again to find out.